Welcome to this episode of Engineering Success Profile Editions. Today we're joined by Imisi Joseph, who is a CAE Tools and Simulation Engineer at Jaguar Land Rover. She's going to discuss her amazing role to date. Hi Imisi, and welcome to the show.
Hi Jamie, thank you very much for having me. Super
Great.
excited.
It's great to have you here. Can we start with what made you choose a career in engineering?
Yeah, sure. So I think I've always wanted to be an engineer, probably from a young age, and I just didn't know really. I've always been fascinated with technology and how things work. And also my dad was a telecommunications engineer. So I think that probably helped me be interested in that kind of area. Always wanted to know how things work. I was always breaking video cassettes and everything just so my dad could fix them and be by his side. I think that's what really kind of fueled me to wanting to become in that career. And I think as obviously during school, and just looking at the subjects I was interested in, it was mostly maths that was my strong suit, and then obviously physics came later. So once obviously talking to some of the career advisors, I think it was quite clear that obviously with maths and physics, those were the forefront and the pinnacle of what's needed for an engineering career to study. So once I kind of had that ready in place for my A-levels, it was pretty much gone from there.
So what was your route into engineering then?
So I studied further maths, physics, and I did PE for AS level during my A levels. So that was pretty much by that time I knew I wanted to be an engineer. However, I wasn't entirely sure what I wanted to do in terms of which engineering to go to, because obviously you have so many different disciplines. And for me, I find it so difficult when I'm faced with so many options. It's how do I choose? So I actually did a Head Start course with the EDT. So I did that just at the end of year 12, and that's a week-long course that you do at a university, and you get to experience all the different disciplines. So I did some mechanical engineering, civil engineering, electronic engineering, so during that week, as well as with about 20-30 other aspiring engineers, I got to really understand the disciplines and what they involved. And it was through the electronic activity where we had to make a amplifier. That's when I really honed in, and I think this is the sector that I wanted to go into. And so I studied bachelor's in engineering in electrical and electronic engineering at Imperial, and through that, mainly through my final year project, which was based on a simulation model for a hybrid electric vehicle. That's when I kind of was geared into the automotive sector. But even till then, I still wasn't too sure what I wanted to do. And it was actually that when I graduated, that's when I decided I wanted to take a year out and experience the world of engineering and into the automotive engineering, just to be sure that this is something I wanted to go into. And through that, I did a year placement with Jaguar Land Rover. I was based in battery management storage. So through that, obviously, I learned more about electric vehicles in that case, because I was worked for, this was at the time, Jaguar's first all-electric vehicle, the Jaguar I-Pace. So that I really got a good experience as to, one, the automotive world, and two, what's going on in electric vehicles as well. And I think from there, it was pretty good. I feel this is where I want to go. So I went back into uni just to do my master's, because I did want to achieve that. And also I wanted to be involved in the project. So again, I worked with Jaguar Land Rover for my final year project, which was to do with algorithms for battery aging. And then through that, luckily, I was able to come back as a graduate on the grad scheme for Jaguar Land Rover after I graduated, and since then I've pretty much been Jaguar Land Rover.
So what is a CAE Tools and Simulation Engineer, and what does your role actually entail?
Sure. So CAE stands for Computer Aided Engineering, and essentially I help my calibration engineers, my colleagues, to just create tools and to also simulate certain aspects of the car, and that saves time obviously kind of going in the car and having to try out different aspects of the car. And essentially what I do is I use software such as MATLAB and also some car simulations in order to do so. So obviously in the same way, I'm also saving the environment, environment, because you don't necessarily have to go out in the car all the time just to test something specific out. So it's a bit of software engineering, one could say, but also you do need to do other various things, because there might be some instances where I might need to gather data in order to create maybe a tool to process or analyze data. So maybe I'll need to go out in the car just to collect that. But essentially what we're trying to create is an environment where we can just simulate various aspects of the car, or optimize certain features of the car, such as maybe the EV, so the electrical vehicle range that electric vehicle can do, and just various aspects of the car like that.
Right. So obviously your role encompasses lots of different disciplines. Is there a particular discipline that you enjoy more than the others? And if so, why?
So I think most likely it's going to be the software engineering part for me in terms of the coding. So I always like kind of being on the computer and just trying to think of like an algorithm, or just trying to think of a code that could enable to help or optimize what I'm doing. I think that's my most fun part, because one, it's all me, so I get to do whatever I use, and that I'm also able to learn Python, which I hadn't actually learned before. I was mostly kind of based in MATLAB, so it was great to learn obviously a new coding language, and obviously play around with that. So I think that's probably like my most proud moments, and also what I most enjoy, because it's kind of taking a problem and then having to use code to solve it, or outcome something that a colleague can now use. Instead of having to click thousands of buttons, I can help them do it, hopefully in one click.
So what skills do you think are needed to become a CAE tools and simulation engineer?
So I would say in terms of technical skills, definitely some software background would be really ideal. I found most of the ones that I've used are MATLAB, which I try to encompass also in my final year projects whilst I was at university, because that is really widely used throughout the company and within my department. So I would definitely say at least some kind of basic understanding would be really great and beneficial. And also a little bit of coding, I would say, even though you can still learn on the job, it's nice to be able to understand maybe Python or maybe another coding language, just to kind of get that little step ahead, so I would say. I would also definitely say in terms of the softer skills, definitely communication, especially when you come from a very kind of coding background and you kind of want to explain to your colleague and they just have zero knowledge of what you're doing. It's really important that you're able to communicate to them what you're trying to do and what you're trying to achieve, and also make sure that you're aligned with what they want from the tool that you're also doing. And then again, with communication always comes teamwork as well, because I'm in a team with two other of my colleagues, and so if we're based or got a project that we need to do, we kind of want to split it up into sections, so we want to do one part of each other and make sure we're all kind of aligned with our outcome. And that also helps making sure we don't like kind of do someone else's job and they've already done it, and we have two codes that does the exactly same thing. So yeah, I would definitely say those are the main skills that one would need.
So what do you find the most challenging part of your job?
So most challenging part, I would probably say, is when you have like maybe a new project, or someone needs a new tool and it's something that you're not entirely sure of what's going on in terms of the aspect of the car. So because one, you have to learn what's the feature and what the feature does, and what they want, what tool that you want, or what simulation they would like to run. And but that it can be complicated, because a car is just so complex, and even though we're literally a small subsection of it, like even then you've got features upon features upon signals upon everything. So you have to first understand what is even going on, and then you need to understand what they want, and then thinking of an algorithm or a code that is able to do what you want them to do, and also in a timely manner. I think it's kind of piecing that all together can be challenging at some parts, especially when it is a complex feature and it might take several stages. But at the same time, it's quite rewarding, because when you kind of done it and you've looked at all your hundreds of lines of code, it's like, it works. So it's quite satisfying in a way.
So that leads on to my next question: is what's the most rewarding part from you? Was it what you just said, or is it something else?
So a bit of what I've just said, but also the fact that it's obviously everyone's trying to help to essentially kind of build a car and make it great. And I think what I love about my job is that not only contributing to it, but I just see it like almost every day. So whenever I see a Jaguar I-Pace, or I see like one of the Range Rover Sports, I'm like, oh, I helped do this and that.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I
yeah.
never know, but I know
Yes.
that I help to contribute to it. And especially with the rise of electrified vehicles, I'm glad to be helping in that sector, especially because it's so needed right now.
That's right.
Electrification and the impacts of global warming. So it's great to be involved in this sector that's trying to even combat that and make all of our vehicles in some way electrified.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So what advice would you give to a future CAE tools and simulation engineer?
I would firstly say be confident that you know what you're what you're doing is you know what you're doing. So I would definitely say that don't worry that if you kind of take too long in something, or you need to ask more questions, because they absolutely love when you ask questions, because no one wants, especially when you're coding, you don't want to now start the code, you finish it after a few hundred lines, a week or two, and it's not what your colleague or what the customer wants. So it's just be bold and confident in asking questions, just to make sure you know exactly what your outcome needs to be. And that definitely helped me a lot during well, it's been about a year that I've been in this role, to essentially understand what's going on, and also just be a great team player. Everyone loves a team player, so just be ready to communicate with your colleagues on anything, and don't be afraid to ask for help, and just be getting ready to be stuck in, really, because it's a really enjoyable career. You get to do different things, and yeah, it's just really good place to be in. And especially even if you're not too sure what you want to do, but you know, maybe coding, you want to include that, it's a great way to start, because then you can build upon your skills in that way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you do an awful lot of outreach work, promoting engineering, you know, in your own time, to young people. What's your message to young people to actually attract them into engineering?
Sure. So I would definitely just say start networking as early as possible. I think that's something that I really found right from pretty much when I started A levels, especially since the EDT Head Start course that enabled me to obviously meet fellow engineers, and also meet the people that were also organizing it. Because from there, they were able to invite me to other events. Because from there, I was able to do something with the Royal Academy of Engineering, because I spent a few days with them and with other women in engineering, and they gave us some tools and guidance as to when we started our engineering career. And through that, that's really enabled me to kind of continue my networking skills and be able to create just a really good network base. So I'd definitely say that, especially if you're maybe not as confident at the start, if you start with just maybe going to an event or two, and that will just help you with your networking skills, and then that can definitely lead you on to your next stage in your career. So yeah, definitely first would be networking, and number two definitely is to enjoy it. I think it's very easy to kind of get all wrapped, because I know in terms of university, like, it's not easy doing an engineering degree, I won't lie, but I think definitely try and enjoy the good parts in terms of when you are doing different projects or different lab work, and just kind of keep that momentum going and that determination going, and I'm definitely sure that they'll make it far.
Yeah, that's great advice. So you're on the Women's Engineering Society Early Careers Board. Can you tell us a little bit about more what they do, and you know, how they interact?
Yeah, sure. So I joined the board actually just this June. So the Women Engineering Society Early Careers Board, essentially we're trying to promote, obviously become a role model for young women in engineering, but also to promote our voices within the engineering society as a whole. So we would like to feed back to obviously all the staff and the trustees, and just make sure our voices are heard and what we also would like to see. And I think going back to the role models, it's really important for us to be able to get engaged with the different competitions that are going on. So we also have the Lottie Tour that you may have seen.
Yes,
So that's been really great, and just be able to promote it to young women, and also to be able to encourage those, especially in their early careers. It's great to see my fellow ECV board members all at that stage of our career. We graduated, and now we've obviously been able to work in our respective companies for a few years. And it's also nice for me to network with them, and also be able to understand what they do and how we can all like help each other out in that kind of way. So yeah, definitely some things coming up that I won't say just yet, but definitely keep an eye out for that. And it's great to be able for me to give back and just help continue the encouraging young women into engineering.
Yeah. Imisi, that's it. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Great. Thank you so much, Jamie.
Thank you.